Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to this week's Friday Reads, where I talk about everything I read in the last week, what I am currently in the middle of, and what I think I'm going to be getting to next week. And as predicted last week, I did not actually finish all that much because it was very, very busy. However, I did manage to finish one thing, and that is Marked in Flesh by Anne Bishop, the fourth book in the Others series. So this is an adult urban fantasy series, and it posits this world where before there were humans, there were the Terra Indigene, or the Earth natives. And essentially they are the ultimate predator, and they control the land in the alternate version of the US, essentially. And they lease that land to the humans, but the Earth natives' main goal is to protect the Earth, and that sometimes means that they come into conflict with the humans and what the humans would like to be doing. And in our first book, enter our main character of Meg Corbin, and she is a blood prophet. Essentially, you cut her skin and she speaks prophecy. But she is currently on the run from the people that would use that ability for their own profit, and she finds sanctuary with the Earth natives. And the story kind of goes from there. And I can't really give you a description of book number 4 without spoiling all the rest of the books in this series, because this is a series that has an overarching plot line which is very, very interconnected within each book. But it is a continuation of the story, and yeah. So this is a reread for me, and I enjoyed it. I love this series a lot. I love the characters and the character development. I love the storylines. Just generally, the world building is so interesting and just generally pretty unique within the genre. So I really love this series in general. And with rereads, I find that they tend to fall into two categories. One is you're doing a close reread so that you can catch new things and make new connections and really think about this world that you have already enjoyed. And then there's the rereads that you do because it's something that you love and it is something that is familiar. So it is very comfortable. And that was more kind of what I was doing with this book, where it was more of a comfortable reread. So I wasn't paying super close attention. I was just following along on this story that I really enjoy. And it was great for that. And so I enjoyed my reread with this. I just don't have anything really new to say. So I think I kept my same rating. I ended up giving it 4.25 stars, which is about where it was before. But yes, still very much enjoy it, and I only have one more book left in this series. And now I am in the middle of Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. So this is an adult science fiction standalone, and it is a dual timeline book, and essentially we're following one timeline, which is present day, where it is the start of an outbreak of a very, very deadly flu. And then the other timeline is 20 years in the future, after this flu has basically decimated society, and kind of what that looks like. I'm not entirely certain of what the actual plot description is, and I'm not that far into it, but that is the premise. Now I am on page 54 currently. So here's the thing. I have very mixed feelings about this book. So I read the first chapter and I was just like, oh, this is not what I was expecting at all. I don't know what I was expecting because I went in with actually very little concrete knowledge about this book. But I read the first chapter and I was like, this may not be for me. So then I had to put it aside for a couple days to be to reset my expectations so that I could go into this knowing more what to expect so that I could give it a better chance. I didn't pick up anything in the meantime, mostly because I didn't want to wait too long with this book, and I didn't want to be in the middle of a different book and have to put that aside. So I just kind of sat on it. But I started reading it again last night, and like I said, I got to page 54. And I still have very mixed feelings about it. So the big drawback for me, well, okay, there's a couple things. So I'm not always a fan of dual timelines. I think it has to be done very well and kind of in a very specific way for me personally. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's not like the way that works well for me. Um, and then the other thing is actually just the writing style. It's a little bit more lyrical, I think, and like I think that the lyrical style probably fits with what this book is trying to do, but it does make it a little bit more difficult for me to understand. And there have been a couple sentences where I've had to reread them a couple times to try to figure out what the intention was. And there was at least one sentence where I was just like, I'm not sure what these pronouns are referring to, and I can't figure it out, and I just have to move on, which I really don't like. And then just generally like the details that are being introduced or like what's being said is not my favorite. And like it's the kind of thing where we're in present day timeline and they're like, and that's the last time that, you know, this thing ever happened. And I was just like, why are you putting this in here in this timeline when we can clearly see that that thing is never going to happen because we're in another timeline 20 years in the future where clearly that thing stopped happening? Does that make sense? Like, it just seems like a really odd place to put that kind of detail in. So like, I'm not totally vibing with it. Now, however, none of those things are actually deal breakers for me. They're things that kind of hinder my enjoyment, so this is likely never going to be a 5-star read. But, like, it's not, like I said, it's not a deal breaker. And so I am continuing because I keep thinking the plot, like what we're starting to get from the plot is like, oh, this could go in some very interesting ways. I know that we're going to get deeper in on some of the characters and I might really like adore these characters, and I still want to give it a chance because I can see how potentially the plot or the characters could kind of pull me along through this book. But where I'm at page 54, I don't really know. And so the plan is that I'm going to read probably until page 100 and then reevaluate. And if I feel exactly the same as I do now, where I'm still kind of meh on the plot and the characters, and I'm still having not a great experience with the writing, then I will probably DNF it because those things mean that it's likely to be a 3 to 3.5 star read. And I'm trying not to read too many of those, especially if I'm not enjoying the content of it, if I'm not enjoying the process of reading it. So there you go. I'm on page 54. I have intention to read until page 100 and then reevaluate. And if I'm not having a better time, then I will DNF it. So getting into the plans for next week, this is part of it. But one other thing that I kind of wanted to mention that's not necessarily as normal for these updates is I am actually going to take back a few books to the library unread. Now, I checked out a bunch of nonfiction books and I knew that there was a chance that I wasn't going to get to all of them, but I was still hopeful. But I realized that like just having so many books on my bookshelf was making me anxious, and I'm just not necessarily going to want to get to these soon. So I am going to take back Okay Boomer, Let's Talk by Jill Filipovic, Can't Even by Anne Helen Peterson, and How to Read a Dress by Lydia Edwards. Now I'm still interested in these books, and like these two, Can't Even and How to Read a Dress, are actually still on my Goodreads TBR shelf. I have every intention of getting to them sometime. It's just not going to be now. And I'm only mentioning it because these books did appear on my May TBR video, and I wanted to let you know what was happening with them. And then so getting into next week, like I mentioned, Station 11 is going to be a big thing. And then after I finish or DNF Station 11, I'm going to pick up Etched in Bone by Anne Bishop. This is the 5th and final book in the main storyline for the Others series. And so then I can just finish it out and be done with this reread. And if I still have time after that, I'm going to pick up The Lady and the Highwayman by Sarah M. Eden. And then at the same time, I also will be using these yoga books, Accessible Yoga and Get Your Yoga On, to be create some yoga routines for myself. I really thought I was going to read these, like actually more read them, like maybe not cover to cover, but actually like read more of it. But again, same with the other nonfiction books that I'm taking back unread. I think I'm just not necessarily in the mood for nonfiction right now, but I still want to create some yoga routines for myself. So I'm going to use these as reference books when I do that, but I may not read enough of them to have thoughts. I don't know. I'll let you know what's happening next week. Just I may not have a ton of thoughts about these books. But that is it. Those are my, everything I read this week and what I'm in the middle of and what my plans are for next week. This is pretty ambitious. It's very ambitious for me to think that I'm going to get through all of these books next week, because we are in the final stretch for the school year, and like the end of school year is always the busiest. So we'll see how much I actually get through, but hopefully I can finish some of these books. But that is all I have. So if you have any thoughts or feelings about any of the books that I mentioned in this video, or if you would like to let me know what you are reading, please leave me a comment down below. But that is all I have. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!